before we begin, put on your headphones, find a quiet place, and for the next few minutes, listen as if this isn't about someone else, but about you. There is a version of you that you have never met, not because it's hidden somewhere far away, but because you built the walls yourself, brick by brick, every time you looked away from something you didn't like seeing. Carl Jung had a name for it. He called it the shadow, and he warned that the parts of yourself you refuse to look at don't disappear. They just start running things from the dark, quietly, for years, without ever announcing themselves. This isn't a warning about becoming a worse person. It's the opposite. It's about how much of what looks like other people's behavior is actually a mirror pointed the wrong way. Observation 1. Whatever irritates you most in someone else is rarely just about them. Notice the people who get under your skin instantly. The arrogant one, the lazy one, the manipulative one. Ask yourself, honestly, whether you've ever caught even a flicker of that same trait in yourself, and immediately looked away from it before the thought could finish forming. Think of the person who cannot stand hearing someone else brag, who feels a hot flash of contempt within seconds of it starting. Often, underneath that contempt is someone who wants to be proud of something out loud and has never once let themselves do it. The bragging isn't the offense. The permission it represents is. That flicker is the shadow announcing itself. The intensity of the irritation is the clue. Mild dislike is just preference. Intense irritation is usually recognition, arriving faster than the conscious mind can catch and relabel it as something else. This is why the same trait can bother one person intensely and barely register with another. It was never really about the trait itself. It was about which door that trait happened to knock on. Observation 2. The people who trigger you hardest are messengers, not enemies. This is uncomfortable because it means the person you resent most might be showing you something about yourself that no friend has been honest enough to say directly, and certainly not to your face. It doesn't mean they're right to treat you badly or that their behavior is excused. Someone can be genuinely wrong and still be an accidental messenger. The two aren't in conflict. It means your reaction to them is data, separate from whether their conduct was fair. And most people burn that data instead of reading it, because reading it requires admitting something they'd rather leave unexamined for another decade. The test is simple. Does the anger fade once you're away from the person, or does it keep circling back at inconvenient times, in the shower, at 2 a.m., during conversations that have nothing to do with them? Anger that lingers past the encounter is usually pointing at something closer to home than the person who provoked it. Compare that to genuine, situational frustration, the kind that resolves itself once the situation does. That kind fades on schedule. The kind worth examining is the kind that doesn't. There's also a physical tell worth noticing. Situational frustration tends to fade evenly, like a wave receding. The shadow-linked kind tends to spike unpredictably, returning at full intensity days later over something small and unrelated, a different clue that what's circling isn't really about the original moment at all. Observation 3. What you can't tolerate in others is often what you're most afraid is true about you. The person obsessed with exposing other people's dishonesty is frequently the most afraid of their own capacity to lie. The person who cannot stand weakness in others is often the one most terrified of their own, and builds an entire personality around never appearing to have any. This isn't an accusation. It's just how the mechanism works. We build the loudest defenses around the doors we're most afraid to open ourselves. A door nobody's afraid of doesn't need a guard posted in front of it at all times. Only the doors that matter get that kind of attention. Notice, too, how much energy this defense actually costs. Vigilantly policing a trait in everyone else, all day, every day, is exhausting in a way that simple disagreement never is, because underneath the policing is a much quieter, much older fear that's never been allowed to finish its sentence. Observation 4. Denying a part of yourself doesn't erase it. It just puts it in charge without your permission. The anger you refuse to feel doesn't vanish. It leaks out sideways, in sarcasm, in silence, in decisions made from a mood you never admitted to having in the first place. The ambition you call selfish and bury doesn't disappear either. It resurfaces as resentment toward everyone who dared to want something openly, and got it, and looked comfortable wanting it. What goes unacknowledged doesn't go away. It goes underground, and it drives from there instead, showing up as the tone in a text message you can't quite explain, or the reason a small comment ruined an entire afternoon for no reason you could name at the time. The pattern is almost always the same. Whatever gets denied at the front door gets let back in through a side window, wearing a different name, at a moment you didn't choose and can't fully account for. This is why people are often genuinely baffled by their own overreactions. A comment that shouldn't have mattered, triggering a response wildly out of proportion to it. The comment was never the actual cause. It was simply the side window the denied material finally found open. Observation 5. Your loudest inner critic is often a disowned ambition, wearing the disguise of judgment. The voice that tells you, "Who do you think you are?" for wanting something big, is rarely protecting you from failure. More often, it's protecting you from admitting how much you actually want it. Because wanting it openly and not getting it hurts more than never admitting the want existed at all. Watch what that voice actually targets. It rarely attacks the things you don't care about. It goes straight for the ambition that matters most, dressed up as humility, as realism, as just being practical. Because an unspoken want can't be laughed at, and a spoken one can. Notice, too, how quiet that voice goes the moment you actually admit the want out loud to someone you trust. It rarely survives being said. Most of its power depends entirely on staying unspoken. This is a strange kind of test you can actually run. Say the ambition out loud, plainly, to one person. Not to announce it to the world, just to hear it exist outside your own head. The critic that felt so loud a moment before often goes quiet almost immediately, which tells you something about how much of its authority depended on the silence itself. None of this is about becoming a darker person, or excusing bad behavior by calling it shadow work. It's the opposite. Jung's actual claim was that the shadow only controls you while it stays unconscious. The moment you can name a trait in yourself, even the ugly ones, it stops driving from the dark and starts being something you can actually choose what to do with, instead of something that chooses for you while you insist you had no part in it. You don't get rid of the shadow. You just stop pretending you don't have one, and that single admission changes what it's able to do to you from that point on. So the next time someone irritates you more than the moment seems to justify, don't look away from that feeling. Look directly at it, even briefly, and ask what it's actually pointing at. You don't have to act on the answer immediately, or even like it once you find it. Just let yourself see it clearly for a moment before it goes back to running things unnamed. That's where the ledger gets honest.